Welcome to Your Product Management Career is Not Dead. Make yourself indispensable in these times of uncertainty. Boy, I tell you, serious times of uncertainty. What was
I was
going
going to
on?
say, yeah, I was just having a conversation with somebody here a couple of days ago. I guess it was over the weekend about that, and it definitely can feel that way.
That's for sure. Absolutely. All right. So why don't we go to the next slide? Tom, introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, so Tom Evans, and I've been a trainer and consultant with Productside for close to 15 years. I think it'll be 15 years in May, and have had a lot of fun doing that. And during that time, I've been here in Austin, Texas the whole time, and I love living in Austin. So I imagine we may have a few Austinites on the call.
hmm Excellent. Very good. And I'm Roger Snyder. I have been with Productside for 8 years. I am based in California, here in the Santa Cruz Mountains, where I was just telling Tom that it's foggy, but then you probably just saw the sun come out for a moment on my face. So I will step aside in a moment and close that skylight. But uh, we're happy to have you here today. Let me go over a couple of quick things and then we'll turn it over to Tom. This is sort of the salad course. If you're not familiar with Productside, we have been around 25 years and we are focused on helping product teams. We are exclusively interested in helping product managers, product management leaders, product marketing managers, product owners. That's our bread and butter. And we do it by joining you in helping you transform, either transform in your own personal career, developing your skills as a product manager, or transforming an entire organization to be more focused on building products that customers love and products that lead to excellent outcomes. And we do this by paying attention to your particular needs, right? When we work with even our students in our public classes, but when we work with an organization, we will dig deep to understand your particular context and make sure that the content then and our work, our services, our examples, all are tailored to meet your particular needs. And we are all invested in your success. We are experts. Tom and I have been around in this industry for over 20 years each, as well as all of our consultants. And we want you to succeed. We're passionate about riding along with you on this journey and helping you be more and more successful in what you're doing, either as an individual product manager or as an organization.
And Roger, I think our gray hairs give away a little bit more than 20 years.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate that. You're right about that. All right. We want this to be interactive. So even now, we want this conversation to be tailored. So please, in the chat box, feel free to put things in, but more importantly, in the Q&A box, we would love, and you see an image here, right down there at the bottom of the bar, go into the Q&A box. That's where I will be paying attention. Please post your questions there, and we'll try to answer them either during the conversation or we will save time at the end to also take your questions. So yeah, please start queuing those questions up so that we can make this an interactive conversation. Now, the number one question that we get is, hey, will I be able to watch this webinar later? And the answer is yes. You will receive an email with a link to this recording after the webinar has ended, typically the same day. So feel free to rewatch and also feel free to share with your friends, right? We want to spread the love and the knowledge that we like to share here in our webinars. Talking about sharing, we also love to have a community. And so we have built this LinkedIn community where you and your colleagues can get together and share best practices, ask questions, talk about the issues of the day, right? Discuss the importance of product management, basically network with your peers and be able to have a nice open space to continue to learn, continue to help each other out. So join us on this LinkedIn group. There is a QR code here as well as a link in our chat. So grab that link and join the community. All right. With that, I believe we're done with the salad course and it is over to the main course. Tom, I will turn it over to you.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you, Roger, and welcome to everyone. We're going to cover a couple points here today. And the meat of it, of course, is going to be the 5 core powers to empower your career. And so we're going to kick off, talk a little bit about what's creating the uncertainty around the career, talk about those 5 core powers, and then we're going to wrap up with what can you do to make yourself indispensable in 2025, because that's really the main outcome that we want to be able to see. Well, there's definitely been, if you follow any of the product management postings and things on LinkedIn, I will say you definitely have seen someone talking about, product management is coming to the end. AI is going to replace us. Of course, we've got other uncertainties going on. And I just participated in Product Camp Austin here little over a week ago. And there was one session who really talked about, the death of product management coming along. And so, with this in mind, in terms of the uncertainties, uh, we're not going to do this as a poll, but if you would in the chat window, just type in a word or two of what comes to your mind when you think about career uncertainty for product managers. We want to see what's on your mind right now.
Mm-hmm. Opportunity. Good. All right. Positive. Anybody else?
There we go.
AI
All
at
right.
home.
Yeah.
Good.
That lack of consistency, that's kind of there no matter the state
Right.
of everything else
Anytime.
going on.
Right. Right. My entire career, in fact.
Mhm.
Organizational strategy. Good. Yep.
Yeah.
Salaries. Excellent.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fear. I see it. I definitely have picked that up as I talk to some people, around Austin and others that I've done training with.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And the next one too.
Well,
Impact of politics on the economy in the recession.
yeah.
Recession, right? People are talking about the R word again.
Yeah. Yeah. They're officially not there yet, but
Right.
there are some that do have that concern. So I think it's
Mm-hmm.
like it depended on the economist, anywhere from a 40 to 50% chance. I think depending upon the latest polls that you read, it's kind of in that area there.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, there's a serious concern, of course.
Okay. Well, why don't we go and look at our product management careers using a tool that we love to use when we work with our clients is a pest analysis, or
Mm-hmm.
pestel analysis is really the full description here. And this is where we look at what's going on politically, economically, social, technological, environmentally, and legally. And I'm not going to walk through and talk to all of these. But I think when we think about the concerns that we have, we see things like the trade tensions and the tariffs going on. We still have concerns over inflation and perhaps an economic recession. I know that many people have um, going through layoffs here over the last couple of years. And the word I'm getting is hiring has picked up a little bit, but I think there's also some caution still out there. So
Mm-hmm.
those are the things that I think stand out in our mind around some of the threats, the rapid adoption of AI. That definitely can be seen as a threat to us. But I think I want to go back to, let's see, who put in their opportunity. That was Jennifer.
Mm-hmm.
That while a lot of these can seem like threats, if you
Right.
start looking at some of these other things like the data privacy and scrutiny, the greater demand for inclusion, ethical, human-centered type products, emerging regulation. I think that falls back to one I said already, and this, demand for eco-conscious type products. I really think we have a balance here that says, yes, there are threats to what we're doing as product managers. But if you look at many of these other things, there are a lot of opportunities for us still as product managers. And
For sure.
so, the way I like to look at it, I love this quote from Lenny and Roger, thank you for sharing that. But
Mm-hmm.
really, our deaths are the death of product management is greatly exaggerated, as Mark Twain famously said back in, let's see, was that 19 or 18? It was in the late 1800s, and I don't remember the exact date now. But
1897, something like that.
yeah, somewhere around there,
Mm-hmm.
1897. And I'd like to say the same thing here for our product management careers.
Mm-hmm.
And so, where is it that what's really driving our roles as being more critical than ever? If you think back to the Pestel analysis, we talked about how there's a lot of new complexity and a lot of emerging needs out there in the marketplace. And those are things that we have to be able to bring in solid judgment and make decisions about that. Um, one of the things, Roger, and I'm interested on your take on this, is that those of us who come from an engineering background may have studied about signal to noise ratio.
Mhm.
And AI is bringing in a lot more signal to us. But if you think about it, it's also bringing in a lot more noise.
Right.
And so there's that need for us to have, that judgment in there of what is this, what's really signal, what is useful, and what part of this is actually noise.
Yeah, I
And,
think
go ahead.
AI is doing that for sure, right? So, we'll talk more about that in a little while in terms of the old adage from computer science, garbage in, garbage out is a big
Exactly.
part of
Yeah.
it, right? So we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But yeah, there in multiple dimensions, there has been a rise in noise as much as there has been signal. I think if you use
Hmm.
AI right, you can help more quickly separate that wheat from chaff, but it does require critical analysis skills. My other day job is working with schools as a school board trustee, and we're talking about we want to enable AI for our students to learn from because they've got to go into a career or in the
Hmm.
working world in a few days. They got years. They got to go into the working world and be able to use that tool. But we don't want them to use it to cheat. We want them to use it to gain knowledge, to gain
Yeah.
critical
Hmm.
thinking, right?
Yep.
Because it is more complex now.
Yep. Absolutely. So let us continue on here. What we're going to do is to talk to you about these five core powers that we believe can help you empower your career. And these aren't secrets. They're things that are out there that are talked about all the time. But what I find is we often need to remind ourselves about this and maybe even remind some of our leaders and managers around what is it that we really need to be doing to be powerful as product managers. Now, we're going to do a number of polls here. I think we have about 6 or 7 different polls that we're going to do as we go through. But we want to get your insight first as we approach a topic, and then we're going to talk to that because I think there's a lot of meaningful thoughts that come up. And that very first poll question is, how much time do you spend in meaningful problem discovery conversations with customers? And this is where you can select one, choose the answer that best fits you. Is it more than 10 hours a week, about 5 hours a week, less than 1 hour per week, or we never do it? And you might add in there, even sales won't let us do that.
Mhm.
Roger, I'm sure you have heard that multiple times from clients, the same, we aren't
Right.
allowed to do it.
Right. Yes. Definitely a challenge sometimes where, I get it. Sales wants to be sure that they have control over the relationship, but you got to encourage them to open it up so that they allow you to have those important conversations so you really get that juice of
Hmm.
understanding directly from customers. What do they need? Right?
Yeah.
What are we doing on the poll? All
All
right.
right. Yeah, let's give it maybe another 5 seconds here, but I think we've
Yeah.
pretty well have leveled out on it.
Hmm.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and end that poll, and we're going to put the results up there for
Hmm.
you. And so, if we look at that, the majority is less than 1 hour per week. So if
Hmm.
you think about that, I'm spending maybe about 2%, 2.5% of my time or less engaged with meaningful discovery work.
Right.
We do have a decent number who talk about 5 hours per week, so that's good. That's
Hmm.
you're starting to approach. Well, what is that off the top of the head? It is a 12.5%, so a little bit over 10% of our time
Hmm.
involved in meaningful discovery, and really just a couple there looks like said that they are doing more than 10 hours a week. And I'm really actually glad to see that the people that say never, it's a small percentage.
Hmm.
And I think this is probably pretty similar to what I see as I present in other situations or do training class, that this is quite typical.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so we're going to stop sharing that and go into our next slide, which is the importance of customer intimacy. And if you think about it, there's one thing, at least right now, that I'm not going to trust AI for, and that is customer intimacy.
That's for
All
sure.
right. And who are the people that need to know our users better than anyone else? That's us. That is us as product managers. And I know that I've done it in the past where I go and I talk to sales team members, and that's useful insight, especially when you're coming new into a role. But we really need to be the ones that can talk about what our customers really need, is to really have spent time with them, walked in their shoes a little bit. And so one of the recommendations is, how do I build into my schedule some kind of weekly curiosity rituals?
Mhm.
And one of the best product managers in this area that I ever had in a class, he talked to me about a regular monthly ritual that he had, where he would go and schedule at least one in-person meeting each month with for voice of the customer. Or he would travel once and maybe hit a couple of customers, but he would plan that at least once a month to do some in-person. But every week, he made sure that he was having at least an hour phone call with people in their target market, with their customers. And so the reason I put in there, 5 hours a week is, if you look at the recommendations, I think some recommendations would say you ought to be spending 20 to 30% of your time in meaningful customer discovery. I'm going to be realistic and say that's probably really hard for most of us to do. But boy, if I can hit 4 hours a week, that's
Mhm.
10% of my time. And I think that is a reasonable expectation to set as a good target for us. And that's going to really help us differentiate ourselves.
Absolutely. I would add to Tom that it doesn't, those 4 hours don't all have to be right in front of a customer, but
Right.
can you spend time with customer service, with sales, with product marketing, picking their brains, hearing what they're learning out in the markets, being able to look at research also. Can you spend a little time each week just looking at the latest information about your customers? Go where
Hmm.
your customers go. Spend time on their forums. Spend time in the places they spend time. You're going to gain a lot more understanding and knowledge about your customers. Obviously, direct is best, but spread it out a little bit and use that time to also interact with others and go where your customers are and learn from them.
Yeah. And if you're one of the one of the people that responded that we spend an hour or less, boy, if you can increase that to always at least spending an hour or 2 hours,
Just go to two.
whoa, look at that. You've made a significant difference in terms of
Mhm.
your understanding of your customers. So don't feel like overwhelmed that I can't reach that 10%.
Right.
But boy, take a step forward and try to reach maybe a couple hours per week.
Absolutely.
Yep. All right, another poll. So we're going to go ahead
Mhm.
and launch this poll, which is, how do you measure your success? So this again is, you get to choose one of these. Choose the one that best fits you. So we measure success by delivering features on schedule. We do it with general customer feedback or an MPS type score. We have we have a specific product outcomes that we're measuring success with.
Mhm.
And the last one, we don't measure it. So I can see that we have a few people down there with the we don't measure it. And again,
Yeah.
appreciate everyone being honest on this, because
Yes.
that's really what we want to see here is what's the real world like out there?
Absolutely. Yeah. And for those of you not familiar with it, NPS is Net Promoter Score,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
A single question that gets at whether or not your customers would recommend you to their friends, to their colleagues.
All right, I'm going to give about 3 more seconds here. 3, 2, 1, and let's go ahead and end that poll and share those results. So, one of the things that I'm really glad to see is we got almost half who
Yeah.
say we measure success by measuring specific product outcomes. And I'm going to say, when I do classes, I don't see anywhere near 50% of my participants in classes
Mhm.
who actually have good
Mhm.
specific product outcomes. So, I'm going to say it's less than 10% is where what I see, or they're more of, we don't measure it, or we measure it by deliver features on schedule, is a lot of what I have seen there.
It is encouraging that the sum of general customer feedback and product outcomes is almost 70%, right? So that's encouraging. Over the years, Tom, I do think we have seen a shift here that, is becoming a little less about delivering features on schedule. So,
Hmm. Yep, we
that's
are.
good.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Yeah. Yeah. I had one client that I worked with. Oh, when was it? Probably about 2015 or 16, somewhere in that range. And when I was speaking to product managers and asking about success, they were like, yeah, we deliver features on schedule. And we did some training, we did some work with them. They brought me back about 3 to 4 years later. And I was really glad to see most product managers had shifted their mindset and the way they talked about that. So that was really awesome to see.
very good.
All right. Let us talk about that. So, really, if we want to differentiate ourselves and makes ourselves indispensable, that's really what we have to be able to do is to make sure that all the work that we're doing is tied back to a business outcome and some type of user outcome. And we at Productside talk about the user outcomes as product outcomes. But
Mhm.
I used a more generic term there just so that we all understood. And I'm going to share an interesting example. This was probably about 2 years ago. I was sitting in an airport lounge, and somebody next to me was having a conversation. And he was talking about you need to go out and do some voice of the customer and stuff like that. And at the end, when he finished, I said, sorry, I wasn't trying to overhear your call, but what you're talking to is what I, talk about all the time. And he said, yeah, they were delivering some new features on their product, and he was coaching them. I think it was a little bit more than a startup, but it's still in that early stages. He says they're
Mhm.
delivering some new features in it, and I asked him, what kind of outcome is that going to help you achieve?
Right.
And they could not connect it to any business outcome, and I'm not sure they were able to connect it into even a user outcome. And one of the things that I showed him is our outcome tree that we use as part of Productside. How
Mhm.
important that was is to be able to go and connect what we're delivering back up to outcomes for our customers. And in turn, that's creating outcomes for our business also.
Right.
And so if you're looking for tools on what we can use, look at our outcome tree that is in our playbook. Also
Mhm.
look at our now, next, later roadmaps that is really driven by outcomes and not really a project type plan. And so I think those are things that we want to make sure we're up and in our game in.
Absolutely. So the thing that I want as one of these core five things everybody to take away from is just start thinking that way. In every conversation you have, ask yourself, how is this going to help us achieve either a business outcome for my company or a product outcome for my customer, an improvement for my customer? And if the
Mhm.
topic of conversation, it could be the salesperson with her hair on fire coming into your office and saying, I got to have this. If in that conversation, it's not obvious how it's going to help improve an outcome, say so and ask questions, get curious,
Mhm.
try to connect those dots and get everybody else around you to be thinking that way as well.
Yep. And I think, Roger, that point that you made of asking questions. So, don't ask questions that are challenging them. I made that mistake years ago in my career where I was challenging people as they were doing it. But you ask them more as, being inquisitive to
Mhm.
really say, I want to understand. And in the same process, you're guiding them to a better understanding also.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay, next one is this is in our next poll. What is your cadence of conducting discovery? So and this again, single choice. We do it on occasion. We do it before a program increment if you're using something like SAFe, or we do it before release planning. We do continuous discovery, or there is no time to do discovery.
Mhm. All right. Again, the early responses are looking promising. Mhm.
Well, as our numbers increase, we're seeing things balance out a little bit more.
Mhm.
All right, let's give another 3 seconds here. So 3, 2, 1. And I'm going to go ahead and end that poll and share the results with you. So early when we first started the poll, there was a significant majority that was said we do continuous discovery. But once we really balanced it out, it was about half said continuous discovery.
Mhm.
And then another, let's see, 40%, pretty close to we do it on occasion or we do it right, as we're coming up to program increment planning or release planning. And 10%, no time for discovery. And I'm going to
Mhm.
say this is better than what I typically see with my clients and in the classes that I teach, is
Yeah.
where we see a lot more of there is no time to do discovery. People aren't willing to let us do that. And it does go back to how do we measure success? It's we deliver features on time. And I think there's a connection between that. How much time do we get for discovery versus for being able to or having that note what is it, yeah, having the outcome driven approach and having continuous discovery, I think work together there.
Yeah. Agreed.
All
Totally.
right, well, let's talk to this, and I'm gonna move on here to the slide. And so, this is a lesson I have to say I still have to learn on occasion, is
Mhm.
that let's do small experiments versus focusing on having perfect tight planning.
Mhm.
And I know that in several projects that I've looked at and worked on over the years, I felt like we almost had to have a big, we had to have the big end in mind of exactly knowing what it was we were trying to achieve. But in reality, we could have done just some little experiments that would have been low cost type investments. One of the things that helps a lot with continuous discovery, and I'll refer back to both our outcome tree and our outcome based roadmap, is those are tools that help you start thinking about what am I going to be working on? Where do I have assumptions and uncertainties? And where do I need to be able to do some kind of discovery work? And I think once you start mapping that out, that visibility all of a sudden comes up and says, I know exactly where I need to be doing those discovery. And we use the term tiny acts of discovery because that's really the goal. These are things that you can accomplish in a couple hours, maybe a couple of days. And I think there's on exception, maybe it's actually could take a couple of weeks, but you want to
Mhm.
keep it, fairly short, low investment in the work that you do.
Right, absolutely. And for those of you out there who have got physical products, hardware products, whatever, consumer products, you can do these experiments also, right? There are
Yes,
ways now,
absolutely.
right? With 3D printing, you can model physical models and get feedback on them. You can do things like what we call an explainer video, where you actually just lay out the story of
Hmm.
how a physical product or a machine might be used and get feedback from that. You can do all of that without actually building a tool and die, right? So it's possible now.
Yep. And I since you brought that up, Roger, I'll talk to that
Mhm.
just a few more minutes because I've done a
Yeah.
lot of reading about it and I've had some conversations here, even just recently, with somebody who is trying to practice agile approaches and discovery approaches with hardware or physical products. And one of the things you have to look at is a lot of physical products have delays because you're making decisions early on of which you don't see the impact of that decision until a year or 18 months or more
Mhm.
down the road. And all of a sudden, now you're seeing the impact of it. So the question you need to put in your mind is, what kind of discovery could you actually do, or what kind of experimentation can you do on that decision before you actually make the decision so that
Right.
you've increased the confidence level of the decision early on.
Absolutely. And do it continuous, right? So even on that
Mhm.
journey of getting a physical product built, can you take some checkpoints in and make sure you're still on the right track?
Yeah. Yeah, if you really think about the sorry, I jumped to the next slide here, but if you really think about the discovery, is it's something that the term that I started using is you have to move slower or slow down so that you can go faster. And I think too many people feel like we have to go fast. And
Right.
that's only it. But if I slow down and do the discovery, it's going to help me actually deliver value faster. All right, you're already responding to this next one. This one, you do get to select multiple. So select
Mm.
all that apply because I think you're going to have situations where all will apply. So how do you influence stakeholders? They tell it, we build it. We give them featured list and they prioritize for us. The hippo wins. Now, if you don't know the hippo is the highest paid person's opinion.
Mhm.
And so I have definitely experienced that in the past where that's who won, the hippo.
Absolutely.
And product managers influence with data. Product managers can say no. And
Hmm.
I think often as product managers, we don't feel like we can say no, or we feel like, we have to please everybody. When in reality, we can say no. So let's give this another 3 seconds here. Three,
Yeah.
2, 1. We got a really good response here. Share these results. So, Roger, I have a feeling that we have some people on this call that have been through our training in the past,
This is
or
awesome.
or have
Yeah.
definitely got teams that appreciate the things that we're trying to teach because we have 65% that say product managers influence with data. And
Hmm.
that's really the goal that we want to get to. We want to increase that number of product managers can say no, greater than 33%. But I think the reality is a lot of the companies that I've worked with are in those top three areas of where
Yes.
somebody's telling them what to build and they deliver. Somebody else is prioritizing it, or we got the hippo involved in it.
Right. And 30% of folks said, look, they tell it, we build it. 23%, the hippo wins. Is not binary. There are days in my career, even when we were at our best in terms of being data driven, there were still days where the hippo won. Right. So I think we have to acknowledge that, but we want
Mm-hmm.
to cut down that percentage, right? We want to have data win the day more often than not, for sure.
Yep. So that's really what it is if you think about what we do, our role is about that strategic influence, influencing other stakeholders. And I would say right now, AI is not going to manage those soft skills and relationships with others in the organization. And so, if we can improve on our soft skills, if we can improve upon our hard skills also, in terms of the product management skills that we've been talking about, you're going to now be that connector that talks about why are we doing this? What are we doing? Here's how we need to approach it. You're going to be telling stories. And I think that storytelling skill is so important for us in
Mhm.
leveraging data and using it to align stakeholders. And it's going to help empower us because we say no. We're willing to say no. So, and or we're willing to say yes under these conditions. So I think using using great soft skills in terms of either saying no or at least delaying something is to our advantage to be able to say that.
Mhm. Yeah, and I like the no because, again, data driven, right? And
Hmm.
yes, if or yes, and, right? Let me go do some research on that is one of my favorite responses to a
Yeah.
lot of these
Hmm.
questions, particularly to the hippo, right? Like, hey, we've already said we've got an outcome tree, we've got an outcome driven roadmap, we've already said we've got a set of priorities, but that's an interesting idea. Let me go do some research on it,
Hmm.
right? That's how you build your strategic influence. So the more you can tell stories, the more you can bring data to support them, the more you'll be trusted.
Yep. I had a conversation. I met somebody for coffee yesterday, and we got talking about AI. And one of the things that she talked to is that she had done some research, and then she kind of really started to dig into AI. And she says at the end of it, she finally got AI to say, "Do you answer these questions to be accurate, or do you answer these questions to please me?" And the response was to please you.
It was honest,
And
right?
it's that's really interesting perceptive there. It is to be thinking about how do we, you know, how much do we trust AI if it is targeted toward making us happy versus really giving us the full truth or the most accurate answers.
Right. Great example.
Oh, she's saying, I'm not following you. Give them a feature list. So that's from Jennifer.
Right.
Seems vague. So what what I have seen in some organizations is where we as product managers or product owners bring together a, list of everything that we could possibly do to the clients. And instead of us being the one to say, here's how I'm going to prioritize it, is we give it to an executive team and they do the prioritization for it. So that's what I meant. We give them a feature list and they prioritize it for it. So we get a leadership or an executive team to do that.
Right. Right. That is definitely one approach that I've used in the past for sure.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we are not offloading, being forced to let the executives make those decisions. It was
Mm.
my experience, right? I never wanted to give that responsibility away. I was told I had to give that responsibility to them. They made the decisions, right? Fortunately, that was earlier in my career.
Yeah. Okay. Another poll here.
Yes,
How
love it.
often do you use AI in your product management work? So let's see. Do we have that poll coming up?
Where is did I?
Yeah, Jennifer, that's right. Is that we're offloading the job to executives, and sometimes it's because of the pressure that we're getting from our executive team, but other times it is because we just maybe haven't done the groundwork, or we don't have confidence enough in it. We haven't done the customer understanding or the market research enough. Okay, so how often do you use AI? A few times per month, few times per week, daily. I don't use AI.
Mhm. This is a single choice, right? Yeah.
Okay, let's give about another
Yeah.
6 or 7 seconds here. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I'm going to go ahead and close that poll now and share the results with you. And so this is one where we have 38% saying daily. We get up to about 50% who are using it, a few times a week to daily. But there is almost 50% of you that say I use it a few times per month, or I do not use AI.
Mhm.
And that's definitely, I will say, a little bit surprising. I appreciate you being honest on that. But when I look at, using AI, couple points that I want to make here is that there's a lot that AI can do. And if you haven't jumped in and tried to use AI on a daily basis, give it a try. And I'm going
Mhm.
to raise my hand here and admit that it wasn't until recently, in the last couple months, where I moved to using AI in the on a daily basis. And part of that is the quality of results that I started to get significantly improved, and I felt more confident in posing questions to the AI. And so, well, here I'm going to put the sorry this. There we go. Put that up there. So, if we think about some of the things that we can do with AI, and this is not everything, but market research, do some hypothesis testing, maybe even come up with hypotheses. That's probably one of the ways that I've used it before.
Mhm.
Rapid prototyping. And I have in the past, if you've listened to me talk, I will tell you, I don't think product managers should be doing software coding type stuff. But now there are tools out there, including just the regular Chat GPT, where you can go and
Mhm.
create a quick prototype in a matter of, I say minutes, but okay, let's say, 15 minutes, 30 hours. I actually, during the call that we were on, Roger and I were on this internal type call,
Mhm.
started working on an app using Chat GPT. And within 20 minutes, I had the code for it. I didn't take it the next step to actually download and install it onto my smartphone, but I was really impressed by how quickly I could come up with something. Now, would it be
Right.
production quality? Probably not. but it was something that I could do some quick prototyping on. And so the point I'm making is we should be thinking about using AI every day in tasks that we're working on. And I've used it a lot of times, and I really do see the improvement in productivity and how much faster I can get certain things done. Drafting documents, I think, is probably the biggest one. But the
Right.
message I want to leave you with is AI won't make you better unless you have strong fundamentals in place.
Mhm.
All right. And Roger, I'm going to let you talk to this a little bit if you'd like to.
Absolutely. So a couple of things here, right? I also was, I don't know, a late adopter like Tom in terms of AI, but I'm using it daily as well. I am finding there are times where I might have been able to do it faster than AI. So that can happen, but keep at it. And I have definitely gotten some big wins from using AI.
Mhm.
Building personas is one that's just so much faster and easier. Getting a story put together with AI where I'm drafting an outline, but then AI is fleshing it out, giving me ideas I hadn't thought of, right? I like to think of AI as my PM assistant, right?
Mhm.
So I'm the one driving the conversation. It's giving me ideas, inspiration, as well as just more efficiency in terms of just pulling together things faster than I would have been able to do so,
Yeah.
right? So it's very powerful that way. There was actually a quote early in the chat, right? I'm just going to go back and find it that I really liked. It's like AI will not replace PMs, but PMs who use AI will replace those who don't. And I
Mhm.
think that's an important thing, right? I think Joanna King said that.
Yeah.
And we have a couple of questions about AI. So let's talk about those questions right now.
Okay, sure.
Michael Smart asks, do you think the AI poll response is alarming? And I want to connect that to what Joanna just said. If you aren't learning how to use AI as a PM, your competition, other product managers,
Hmm.
are,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. If you are in a current role right now, and you're not using AI regularly, those in your if it starts coming back to cutbacks in the organization, needing to lean the staff a little bit, I would say those who are using AI are going to have a competitive advantage over you. And so, yes, you definitely want to use that if you're looking for a new role. Matter of fact, this person I had coffee with yesterday had done a presentation about using AI to help you become more productive and more efficient in your job search. And so that's a great example of where you can use it on a daily basis. But if I'm going to be interviewing somebody for a new product management role, I think one of my questions would be, talk to me about how you use AI in your
Absolutely.
work.
Yep. Now, Mira in the chat said, our company limits what we can use AI for. And I think that's important to understand, right? There are now more and more private instances of
Mhm.
AI available. For example, Microsoft Copilot Enterprise Edition is an AI that constrains your company private information so that it isn't going back to the model and helping it improve. It's helping improve your session, right? There's a context window and it does gain that knowledge. And you can put that session aside in the enterprise edition and come back to it so it maintains that context. But it isn't going back into the big data pool in the sky, the big LLM training system, so that there is some consideration of confidentiality and privacy, right?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
figure those things out. These are important things to understand. I agree. You don't want to take your customer data spreadsheet and just open a chat GPT window and pop it in there. That's a bad idea,
Yeah.
right? So know what your company's constraints are and operate within them, but then try to advocate for intelligent use of AI.
Yep, absolutely. And to your point, I think that's one of the reasons that I have felt more confident in using AI is because of the private sessions. Is there were things that I would, that I do that I felt like had a level of confidentiality to it, and I wasn't comfortable putting that out there. Now that I can do the private sessions, it is a game changer for me.
So the next question, Tom, is what are some of the ways to use AI tools to help build customer intimacy? It connects the dots between this topic and the first one about becoming more intimate with your customers. How do we help build customer intimacy? Can you give us some suggestions on tools that can help?
Mhm. Yeah. So I'm not going to give you a specific tool, but I'll tell you how I use my approach. And it goes back to thing on the screen around hypothesis testing
Hmm.
is that I use it to help me create some of the initial hypotheses. And so, for example, if and understand some of my context is that we, as Roger and I and the other trainers at Productside, often go into a company or a industry where we don't necessarily have a deep level of knowledge, but I use AI as a way for me to quickly gain insights into the industry. If I hear new trends going on, so let me put it in your context. If I see new trends going on in the market, I might say, you know, do so, use it to say, all right, this is happening. Here's my target customers. Here's the things that we're helping them do. How does this impact them? And it helps me create hypotheses around um, things that I should have conversations around. And now I'm going in with a better level of knowledge as I start to have some of these customer communications. So
Right.
that's, the way that I would think about it using it. And then the second is that let's say you do get to where you're spending 2 hours every week in customer conversations. You're pulling in a lot of data
Mm.
and you might start to see some insights on your own. But boy, drop it into AI and let AI start to um, do some of that insight identification for you.
Right.
And Roger, I'll let you build on that with anything other thoughts you have in terms of the customer intimacy.
Yeah, I would jump up to the market research box and connect it there in terms of customer intimacy. Suppose you're looking at a new market segment and you're not familiar with, to the earlier part of our conversation, where do customers go? What conferences or trade shows do they go to? What publications do they read online? What podcasts do they like to listen to the most? Right? Where, even if it's like a consumer, where are they eating? Where are they going for entertainment to spend their entertainment dollars? Right? You can very quickly, to Tom's point, generate some hypotheses. Don't just take everything AI spits
Mhm.
out and say, "Yep, that's the God-given truth." But use that as an inspiration of information on your market research of like, okay, now I have a sense of where I could go. If it's B2B, conferences, trade shows, publications, where are those areas that my customers are listening and talking, so I can gain that understanding and then go dig in there. It's a nice directed, quick way to get to that. B2C, again, understand their psychographic trends, where they're eating, what they're paying attention to, what
Mhm.
TV shows they watch, all of those things AI can help you quickly get a handle on to point you in the right direction to then become able to interface with the right people in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. We're gonna jump on here, but I do want to just make one more comment about that. This note of AI makes great product managers greater.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I started getting to where I was using AI on a daily basis in my work, I asked my son, who's a senior in high school, and I said, "Do they let you use AI in any of your schoolwork?" That goes back to your comment, Roger. And the
Mm-hmm.
question is no.
Mm.
Well, why
Wow.
don't they? It's
Mm-hmm.
because you have to understand the fundamentals. If I don't understand the fundamentals, then it's garbage in, garbage out, or I may ask the wrong question for the wrong problem that I'm trying to solve, and that's the same reason they don't start us in elementary school using calculators.
Right.
We have to understand the fundamentals, and then
Mm-hmm.
they start letting us use calculators.
Right.
And I know that's will be one of the challenges, Rogers, that you face as you start, think about how do we bring AI into curriculums in high school is yes, it's great for them to use it, but where do they need to have the fundamentals versus where does this empower them
Right.
to be even better?
Well, and we have to get out in front of it. We're actually talking about AI in middle school now because the kids
Okay.
are starting to use it there inappropriately, and we want to get around that and try to herd them in the right direction, teach
Yeah,
them the
we
critical
got
thinking skill, right? Yeah,
it.
it's
Yeah.
it's now seventh grade that we're having to worry about this, right?
Okay. Well, this
Well,
actually leads us into our next poll. And
mhm.
this poll question is: how have you learned your product management skills? And this, you can pick one. And so, number first one, no training or OJT or on the job training is what that means if you haven't heard that term before. And I'll admit that's the way that I first initially started learning my product management skill sets is on the job. And
Yeah,
then I
me
would
too.
say I moved into ad hoc, okay, just participating in webinars, reading books, etc. But
Yep.
finally, I was a product manager, I think, for 5 or 7 years before I went through my first formal product management training.
Wow.
And I was just like, wow, I wish I had done this earlier because that would have accelerated my time to knowledge.
Absolutely. For me, it was even longer, right? It was actually not until I had a product management course in my MBA, right?
Hmm.
So that was 10, yeah, that was around 10 years, actually, 10 years into my career as a product manager. That's fair. Wow.
Yeah, you're right, Jennifer. It could have multiple. I limited it to one, so pick the one that best applies. We've got a really good response to this. I'm going to give us just a couple more seconds here to add your response. All right, 3, 2, 1. We'll end that poll. Share those results with you. And so 19% here say I've been through formal product management training.
Yep.
Another 25% have been through some kind of agile or product owner type training. Now,
Mhm.
these actually, are relatively good. Roger, I can't remember. I think I was telling you that Steve Johnson was sitting in on a webinar I did here a few weeks ago, and he threw a comment in the chat window. He says 20% of product managers have actually been trained, and half of those that have been trained have only been trained in agile skills,
Right.
not full product management skills. So this definitely shows a little better around that. But this is truly, aligned to what I saw when I did a similar poll at Product Camp, Austin, and saw some very similar type responses there.
Hmm. Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, again, we have a long way to go, but we're hoping to get people moving in that direction to be able to get the training. And it's becoming more and more obviously valuable to leadership, which is
Exactly. Yeah.
right.
And so really the question for you is how are you going to build a strategy for the product called you as a product manager? So think about how do you position yourself? How are you going to differentiate yourself from others in the industry? And if I'm going to make myself indispensable, I need to move myself into the better strategic thinking. I need to be able to integrate all of these different facets of the market together. I need to be strong in AI and
Hmm.
be able to use it on a regular basis and deal with the uncertainty that we're facing right now. And I need to always be looking at how am I impacting the business? What are the outcomes that I'm impacting within the organization? What are my soft skills that I need to have to succeed? And so the question for you, what are you going to do to make yourself indispensable in 2025? How are you going to up your game? So if you think about what AI is starting to replace for us, it's a lot of the initial drafting of work, things that are very time intensive type work. And that's definitely where I've taken advantage of it.
Hmm.
But where are we going to be essential? Where there is that strong strategic value, product strategy, doing discovery work, focusing on outcomes, aligning stakeholders, influencing stakeholders, the customer engagement. That's where we're going to make the difference and make ourselves indispensable in 2025 and into the future. So that's really kind of the message I want to leave you with there.
Absolutely. These are the things. And again, you can use AI in the top part as well, right? To help you in all the ways that we just described. But you want to be using AI down in the black box so you're able to spend less time down there and more time up above so that in these times of uncertainty, you are the person that rises to the top.
Yeah. Well, let's go into some of our wrap up slides, and we did some Q&A. If we do, we have any more Q&A, Roger?
Haven't seen
We'll
any more
address.
questions, but we probably will have time for one or two more if you can
Okay,
pop those in
excellent.
there. I'll go over the special offers and then we'll come back, right? So our first special offer, and there's a link going into chat for this, is a really great price for optimal product management. And this course is the overview that helps you understand best practices of product management from beginning to end. For those of you who have not had formal training or you've only had PO training in the past, this is the course that will help you become just an effective product manager from beginning to end, right? Great special offer there. Let's go to
Okay,
the
yep. And this applies for just a couple of our upcoming online courses in
Mhm.
May. So make sure to, uh, re if you want to do that, uh, take
Yeah,
advantage of that
yeah,
quickly here.
right. We also have a slide that shows you when our upcoming online courses are. So we'll get to that in a moment. Another great course that we have is Agile Product Management. And this is not PO training. This is training for a product manager to understand how they can become more effective partners with an Agile development team, right? It helps you both be able to serve that team more effectively and helps you get from that team what you're looking for to really unleash your ability to experiment and test and iterate, come up with hypotheses, get them tested, and make sure you're building the right product. A great course.
All right. And Roger, can we talk about the next
Yeah.
webinar? Okay,
Yes,
so
we can.
we have another webinar coming up here.
Yes. Our very own
It
Tom
happens
Evans
to
right
be
here.
me
That's
leading that
right.
one too.
Yes. So Tom and Rena, our CEO, will be back on May 7th to talk about writing requirements that actually drive outcomes, not the placement of the blue box on the screen, but instead actually writing requirements that drive product strategy. All right.
Yep. And one of the things that we're going to be talking about is how do I connect strategy to execution? Because that's really what makes great requirements when we can connect those together.
Excellent. All right. Let's go to the next one. Yeah, here's the slide of upcoming online, live online training. And in fact, the AI course that I'm teaching next week is still open. So you can pop on over to our website and sign up. We have a great class lined up for you next week. And then 3 iterations of optimal product management in May and June. And you should be able to apply that discount that you saw earlier for the OPM class. And then here's another discount right here for for the AI course.
For the AI class. Yeah. And if you happen to be wanting to come to Austin, Texas to learn, we have an in-person that I'm going to be leading here in Austin. So
Hmm.
it's always a good time to come. June's a little warmer, but it's still a good time to come to Austin. So
And to the question about the syllabus for the AI course, just go to our Productside website, go to courses, and go to AI, and you can download the syllabus from there.
all right. Roger, any more questions that have come up?
I'm not seeing any more. Let's take a look here. Lots of thank yous. That's awesome. And then you asked about the syllabus. We just got that. And then let's see here. No, it looks like that's it. We only have 2 minutes left though. So, oh, there was a question. Are you making the presentation available to participants? The recording will be available. I
Mhm.
don't think the slide deck itself
The
will be.
slide deck
You
won't be
have the
available.
recording.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. But you can go back and view the slides through the recording. Oh, some more questions, messages. Let's get down at the bottom. All right. Good info. Excellent. Thank you, Tom, so much.
All right. Well, this is a lot of fun. And Roger, thank you for the collaboration on this.
My pleasure. All right. We'll see you all at our next webinar or online training. Have a great day. Go forth and make great products.
All right. And make yourself indispensable, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Bye bye.